If you, just like me, live the pug lifestyle, then chances are you don't group up very often. So what use are all these meta builds if they assume you have the optimal party comp, which without, you'll just fail and die. I have literally never died in the history of this game, literally ever, and I owe it all to this build. This build has everything. Big damage, big sustain, big boobs. Wait, what'd I say? I said boons, with an N. This is a solo open world Willbender build that is fully self-reliant. Once you learn to use this build, you can take on any number of challenges completely by yourself, all alone, which is starting to sound a lot like my real life open world experience. Okay, so let's quickly run through the build and get you up to speed, and then we can discuss some of the synergies, some of the options you have, and the general gameplay. Okay, first is gear. I'm running a really cringe full celestial set on weapons and armor and accessories. Since this build is meant to be played by yourself, you need to have all your stats covered to help you survive by yourself. Since we're focused on Condi damage, specifically burning, we're going with Rune of Balthazar. We're using Sword Torch and Scepter Focus. Sigils are very easy, bursting on the main hand, smoldering on the offhand. Relic is Relic of the Defender, that way our blocks will help with sustain. Moving over to traits. Starting with Willbender, we go top, middle, top. Searing Pact, since it's a Condi damage boost, Holy Reckoning for might and fury generation, and Phoenix Protocol so Virtue of Resolve gives us alacrity when triggered. Virtues. Willbender is very virtue focused, so the virtues trait line is a no-brainer. We go with bottom, middle, top. Master of Consecrations, very useful since we'll be using Purging Flames. Absolute Resolve, so we can have an at-will Condi cleanse. And Permeating Wrath for the Virtue of Justice enhancement. And finally, Radiance. We take top, middle, top. Inner Fire, since we apply lots of burning, we'll pretty much always proc this. Radiant Fire, again, we are going to be proccing this consistently. And Amplified Wrath for the big burning enhancements it provides. Coming on over to the skills, for the heal, Litany of Wrath. This is by far the best heal. The 0 to 100 potential on this is way too good to pass up. For utilities, I like to go with Whirling Light, Purging Flames, and Stand Your Ground. The elite skill, I've been running Signet of Courage for the passive healing, and the emergency mass heal if it's necessary. And that's it. That there is the base setup for the build. Okay, so let's slow it down and discuss things a little further. I said base setup because there are some changes you can make depending on the situation. So, still here on the skills. I think Purging Flames is a must. Big burning stacks, big damage. I would not change this. Stand Your Ground because I'll admit, occasionally I mess up and I need a stun break. Okay? Trust me, you don't want to be the guy laying on the ground with a 4-second stun. Break the stun and act like it didn't happen. Finally, Whirling Light. This is more of a flex slot. You can swap this out with pretty much anything you feel you might need. For example, Sword of Justice, Bow of Truth, maybe Signet of Wrath. Whatever you want, you can swap that out. Personally, I just like Whirling Light. It hits a bunch, and I think it looks cool. Pretty low cooldown as well, even lower if we keep the alacrity up. Now, same rules apply for the elite skill. You can swap this out for whichever one you want. Personally, I swap usually between Signet of Courage and Heaven's Palm because I like the passive healing from the Signet and I like the big CC from Heaven's Palm. When it comes to Feel My Wrath, I know this is one that mostly everybody takes, but I feel as though Sword and Scepter attack fast enough as it is, and this build already has very reliable fury generation. So all Feel My Wrath is really gonna do for us is give us 4.25 seconds of quickness on a 30-second cooldown. I don't really like it. If you want to run it, go for it. It's up to you. Like I said, it's a flex slot. Run whatever you want. It's not going to make or break the build. Now, when it comes to the traits, there isn't much to discuss here. I will admit I'm not really coming up with anything unique. This is a pretty standard setup for a Condi Willbender. The only changes I've heard people discuss maybe using is going Inspiring Virtue, but if you do that, then you miss out on your only Condi cleanse. I've also heard people say take Tyrant's Momentum, but then you miss out on the Alacrity, which I think is a huge loss. So personally, I would just leave this the way it is. I wouldn't change it. Okay, now on to the gear. First, let's talk about the stats. I know some people in this game are very concerned about overcapping a stat. If that's you, you have probably noticed that we are overcapped on burning duration. If you absolutely must avoid this, then I don't know, maybe swap out the Smoldering Sigil, maybe swap in some Sinister or Grieving armor pieces, but keep in mind the more you do that, the more your other stats are going to lower as well, since we're running a full Celestial set. For the weapons, I have played around with Axe a bit, but unfortunately it just seems a bit too slow. So we stick to Sword since it hits fast and often we can consistently trigger our virtues. As for the Scepter Focus set, I find that a lot of solo play builds really do start to struggle if they don't have a ranged weapon to switch to, especially since some champion mobs have buffs that make them immune to melee damage. So I think Scepter is the best choice since it hits fast and often it will also consistently trigger our virtues. And Focus because Ray of Judgment is pretty cool, and I like that emergency block that it has, which is also going to heal us thanks to our Relic. But also, take a look at that dragon skin I got on the Focus. That's pretty cool, right? I mean, how could you not like Focus after that? Okay, now, talking about relics. I've tried a lot of different relics, but Relic of the Defender seems to be the only one that we really end up getting value out of. Since we have lots of potential Aegis and blocks, we have lots of potential healing. There isn't any burning damage based relics, and since most of our damage comes from burning, all of those power boost relics aren't really gonna do anything for us. And same goes for the Condi relics. All the mechanics they have, we're really not going to be triggering them very much. So considering all that, I think Relic of the Defender is best until they decide to add some burning themed relics. Okay, so just some general gameplay tips here. The way this build works is pretty simple, really. The TLDR version is activate your virtues and then hit your target as much as possible while they are active to trigger your virtues for boons and burning damage. And that's pretty much it. Once your virtues are active, that's when we will get all of the effects from them. And they all trigger after a few hits, which is why we take weapons that hit fast and often, and we take skills that hit fast and often. The more hits you land, the more times you will trigger your virtue effects. And best of all, you can have multiple virtue effects active at the same time for no consequences. So feel free to fire away your virtues to your heart's content as fast as you want. Okay, so I think it's worth mentioning what you can expect from this build. Like I've been saying, this is a solo build with only yourself in mind. So if you do group up, consider running something else that will actually benefit your party, because this is a selfish build that doesn't really give anything to anyone else. Being a solo build, what kind of content can you expect to solo? That I think is dependent on you. This build will give you everything you need, but if you don't have the skills to put it into practice, that's on you. Can you solo legendary bounties with this? Maybe. Can you solo fractals? Again, maybe. I've been able to solo bounties, solo hero point challenges, solo kill champions, rifts with ease. Sometimes at an event with low turnout, I'll see other players struggling and dying while there I am just blasting away without a care. Is this the best possible solo Willbender build out there? No, probably not. You might even be able to go through this and make some more changes to it. You may also notice from this gameplay that I am by no means a flawless player. I very often make mistakes with gameplay and rotations. I mean, sometimes I even waste waste all my burst while my virtues are not active. But even still, this build continues to perform as intended, which I think speaks to one of the hidden strengths of this build, the fact that it allows for mistakes. Because let's be honest, there are some builds out there that if you mess up and make a mistake, uh-oh, stinky, you're probably gonna die. Anyways, I hope you found this interesting and that maybe this build might help you out, but until next time, that's gonna do it for now.